I grew up in Windsor, New York, and basically we're a real small town, but we're a real close community. My dad grew up as a wrestler himself, and he got me into wrestling when I was 7 years old. And I wrestled for a few years in Pee Wee wrestling, and then I stopped wrestling because I didn't think it was for me at the moment. So I started again when I was in middle school as a 7th grader, and I loved it. And I picked it up, and my younger brothers started wrestling as well, and we even had wrestling mats in our house that my dad bought and my mom had no choice but to love. I wrestled up until I was a senior in high school, which was the year 2000, and I took 4th in the section at Section 4 in New York. One of the best decisions I've ever made was to join the military. It was one of those things that I needed something to drive me, and the military, you have no choice but to be driven. I was a Bradley gunner. September 1st, 2006, our Bradley that I was gunning that day, we had my buddy Sergeant Luis Montez as our Bradley commander and Special Andrew Lowe as our driver. We're doing a patrol, and we hit an IED, and the IED hit our fuel cell, unfortunately. If it hadn't hit our fuel cell, nothing would have happened to the vehicle. It was a very small IED, but it just happened to hit our fuel cell and instantly blew up our tank and set it on fire. When it was set on fire, I had to, a quick decision, hop out of the vehicle. I mean, there's a little tiny hatch above my head, and I'm not a small guy, 205 pounds with all my gear on. Had to get out this little hole that was above me, and I did get out of the hole, and I was on top of the vehicle, and my face is on fire, so I didn't know where the ground was exactly, but I knew that's where I had to get because the vehicle was going to explode eventually. So I jumped from the very top, which is about 13 feet, and couldn't brace myself because I didn't know where the ground was. And when I landed on the ground, I broke my leg, and it severed the artery in my right leg, and that eventually resulted in the amputation of my right leg below the knee. I also broke my left foot when I landed. I laid there on the ground, stop, drop, and roll. That's what you do when you're on fire, but in this case, it didn't work out so well. The ground was really dry, the grass was dead, so all I was doing was setting the ground on fire, and honestly, I gave up. I said, if this is how the Lord's going to take me, I can accept it because I wasn't in any pain. The fire had burned through my nerves in my body, and I could accept the fact that this was it, Now I can't accept that because I realize that I have so much more going for me. But at the time it was, I could accept the fact. So I stopped rolling and I laid there. And all of a sudden, the grace of God, I rolled one way and there happened to be a canal, the end of a canal there. And I rolled into the canal. I still didn't see the canal there. I just happened to roll, and I could have rolled back to the vehicle. I could have rolled any other way, but I rolled into the canal, and it put the fire out. I laid in the canal, and I heard my 2 buddies yelling for me. They yelled for me, and came down the canal, one of them grabbed my legs, and the other one grabbed my arms. And as he grabbed my leg, I felt my first pain, because he grabbed the broken part of my leg. So he moved up and grabbed behind my knees and carried me out of this canal, which was an unbelievable accomplishment, honestly, because the canal was really high. I had my gear on. I was soaking wet at that point, and to see me the way I looked probably was hard for them. So they carried me out, and we waited for the helicopter for about a half an hour. I kept asking, how long before the helicopter gets here, and I kept hearing 2 minutes, and that seemed to be every 2 minutes they tell me the same thing, 2 minutes out, 2 minutes out. So I found out later that the helicopter actually had engine trouble and had to turn around and go back and get a new helicopter to come out and get us. So it took a little longer than expected. And actually, it only took me 36 hours to get from the battle zone to Fort Sam Houston. So I did 6 months in the hospital, and after that, I didn't really know where my life was going to be. I didn't know where my life was going. I didn't know if there was even a place for me in the world anymore. My family has been there since day one. They've been unbelievable. They're still there. I still need help with things, and they're still willing to do things for me. My mom signed me up for a trip, and we went to Houston, Texas, and visited a bunch of great people. And really, that was my time to get out and figure out that, I'm still the same person I was before. I may look different, and I'm gonna have to get used to things, but I'm still capable of so many things. Me and all these other guys who were injured in Iraq or Afghanistan, and we were in San Antonio, if we didn't have a sense of humor, I don't know where we would be right now. We were able to communicate between each other and have that sense of humor. We were able to joke about it, which also made us realize that we could joke with other people too. The ringtone on my phone is Johnny Cash, Burning Ring of Fire. Not because I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan, but because it's humorous. One of the things that wrestling has done for me to get me to the point I'm at today is wrestling is one of those things that you have to be tough. You have to be tough to be able to do the sport. If you're not tough, you're not gonna stick with the sport. And there's no doubt that wrestling is one of those things that has gotten me to the point I'm at today, has made me get through this. Not helped me, but made me. It's funny, I see these guys down in San Antonio who were burned also, and I know which ones were wrestlers. Just because of their attitude, because of their strength, because of their toughness, because they've made it through, you can tell which ones were wrestlers. And it's really kind of cool. Receiving the Medal of Courage it's such an honor. It's an honor for me, but it's also an honor for my family, my community, my school, little town Windsor. I wasn't the greatest wrestler ever. And it honestly took me a little bit to not understand why I was getting the award, but to be in the same category as these guys, to be getting that Medal of Courage. And that's when I understood, I had my friends and my family who really helped me understand that it's because of what I've been through and what I've done and who I am now, and that's why I'm getting the award. Not because I was the best wrestler, but because wrestling had a big part of why I am here today and receiving this award.